LA's finest rock, FM 101.9. Miralee Kelly here in the Music Hall. I'm with Peter Wolf and his band, and let me just put the name in context for you. Peter spent about 15 years as the Jay Giles Band singer. Maybe you remember Love Stinks or Centerfold or Give It To Me or Musta Got Lost or Looking for Love or Freeze Frame. Peter Wolf is a solo artist, too. Lights Out, a hit in 1984, I think. Is that the year?
1984.
All right. Peter Wolf is also a painter and a former rock and roll DJ. I like that about you. And a guy with a real way with words. He has been at this for a long time. Fourth solo album is called Long Line. House of Blues show tonight. You're with your band, so you want to introduce them and then launch into a song?
It would be my pleasure. This is the Mighty Street Ensemble. And working on drums, I have Mr. David Stefanelli. Working on guitar, the Harley Davidson of guitar, Mr. Johnny A. On bass, from what they say is the home of rock and roll, Cleveland, Ohio, the great Tim Archibald. And on piano, I have Mr. Brian Mace on piano, on keyboards, and etc., and vocals and all that. These gentlemen have come to Boston to study at one of the most prestigious places, Berklee School of Music, where they stayed for about 8 months till they realized, well, they want to venture out into rock and roll. And they ended up with a trash like myself.
Himself being Peter Wolf, if you just joined
mercy.
us.
Yes, and so since we're all assembled here, the title of the new album is called Long Line, and Long Line is a metaphor for the long road that one takes when they dedicate their lives to rock and roll and the trials and tribulations, the mountains, the valleys, and sometimes, also it's the passing of the torch, sort of like, for instance, down in Mississippi, Son House is playing this guitar, and this young guitar player comes over and goes, "Hey, man, teach me that." And he goes, "No, get out of here." And that guy is named Robert Johnson. He goes up to Chicago and inspires a young Muddy Waters, and Muddy Waters goes over to England and inspires Eric Clapton and Keith Richards and Jimmy Page, and they all come back to the United States with different groups, and it's the long, long line, and it's sort of like when you decide it's not the first album, it's not the second album, it might be the 8th, 10th, 11th, and then you realize it's your entire life that you give into rock and roll when you're working on that long, long line. Let me hear you. So here I am, baby, right back where I've been. I've been tossed around, I've been kicked around, I'm on the outside looking in. Every mountain has its valley, and every valley has its climb. I got the weary blues from trying, 'cause it's uphill all the time. It's a long, long line. Now I don't believe in angels that watch you in the dark. You're born alone, you die alone, you ride lonesome from the start. I've been chasing after fortune, I've been running after fame. It's like trying to paint the sides of a fast-moving train. It's a long line. It's a long line. It's a long line. It's a long, long line. These days are hard to figure, and they're so damn hard to take. When they're passing on the real thing and just buying what is fake. Last night I had a dream, and I hope it's no sign that there was no end to this long, long line. I remember the old photo and the letter that you sent. I was so straight back then. Now I'm twisted and I'm bent. Blossoms in the trees, they're so delicate and fine. But when they fall from the branch, they just wither down with time. I can't help myself, no matter how I try. Desire has no rest, and anger has no eyes. Some people believe in miracles. They say that happens all the time. But I'm still waiting for the man to turn water into wine. It's a long line. It's a long line. It's a long line. It's a long, long line. It's a long line. Oh, it's a long line. Oh,
101.9 here in the Music Hall with Peter Wolf. Did I mention rock and roll preacher as the things that you do? When you were setting that up, the way that you were moving and talking and just the rhythm of your voice and the guys in the band were looking at you as if they'd never heard you say that before.
Well, they never did. They never listened to me, you see. But it's like the Pentecostal being blessed by the holy tribute of rock and roll to motivate your soul, make your knees freeze and your bladder splat. Seniors got to come out because that's what rock and roll is all about.
We can take our hands off the radio now, right?
No, you know, it's when you were talking earlier, when I started as a DJ, I started when FM was first being introduced to the FM airwaves. And so I had a late night radio show, and I had the Wolfa Goofa Mama Tufa show, and we went from midnight to 6 in the morning. And I sort of fashioned myself growing up in New York after many of the great early DJs in rock and roll, because they all had personalities, they were their own program directors, and they really were the people that really started the first great wave that we know as rock and roll. And when I was a kid, they used to have one guy called Jocko Henderson, and Jocko used to be on, and he used to say, oop, pop, ba-doo, how do you do? The time right now is 9:15, zoobazaa-baloo on Jocko's rocket chip machine. And then, you know, I would just keep listening, and later at night, there was the magnificent Montague. And he would go on about midnight, and he would be talking to all the ladies and the lovers. And the Montague would go, now, ladies, you have a problem with your man. I want you to put that radio right down. You know where the magnificent one wants it. Now I'm about 7 years old. I'm going, Mom.
Where's that?
The magnificent was...
What years were you on the radio in Boston?
In the late 60s, as it's, you know, we were, I sort of, San Francisco it started, and then it hit Boston real quick. So Boston and San Francisco sort of were even Steven with sort of the freeform radio. And freeform meant if it rained, you played rain songs. You know, if you got in your car and you got a flat for the next 3 hours, you played car songs, stuff like that.
Well, you know, I grew up listening to WBCN where you worked, and talking about the long line, I learned a lot about music listening to a station like that. And my long line of music was bands like Jay Giles, Lou Reed, David Johansen, Springsteen, and
Right.
the same station would also play the 50s stuff, girl groups and old R&B. And to me, that's, I mean, I know all the people I just mentioned come from somewhere else, but there was an era when those all meant attitude and rock and roll to me. Where is the line going? Because you stopped it at the Rolling Stones. Was there a band that came up to Jay Giles and you passed the torch to them? Are there bands now that you can hear your stuff in?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, I think that, you know, though, you know, my roots and a lot of the music I grew up with and learned from are sort of the heritage roots of rock and roll. I'm constantly going to clubs. I'm constantly going to see new bands. I mean, you have bands like the Black Crowes who, you know, have taken from Faces and Stones, and Guided by Voices, a great band from Ohio. And there's just, you know, you have so many bands that have been affected by the Velvet Underground who were affected by different people in the cabarets and different music from Germany. So it's constantly going on. And I think that's the thing about rock and roll, where it's constantly reinventing itself and defining itself. I think the problem that a lot of some of my contemporary musicians get a little bit, you know, old, farty, may I say, and feel that, you know, music stopped, you know, well, man, it ain't like it used to be. But, you know, it is attitude, and everyone's always searching for the new heroes and new people, and that's what, you know, happened when I was on radio and when bands like Buffalo Springfield came into being. And when Jimi Hendrix came into being, everyone came out of traditions, tried to break traditions. And I think that's still going on. But, you know, the only problem is it doesn't mean to say that, you know, for instance, someone like Roy Orbison, who came from the early days of rock and roll, you know, unfortunately, you know, he passed away, but he was really redefining and sort of coming into a whole new creative aspect. And people like if John Lennon was still with us, I'm sure he would be making, you know, very important music, as Bob Dylan is, as, you know, the Stones and Keith Richards.
Neil Young, yeah.
And Neil Young. There's so many people still doing it, Miss Joni Mitchell. And so it's all about the desire and the passion, and that's what really Long Line's about. It's sort of when you really dedicate that you're going to be an artist, and, you know, the commercial aspects come and go. I mean, even with the Jay Giles band, there were times where we, you know, had like hits like, you know, an album Full House that was very popular, and then there was a lull, and then, you know, there was a point where no record company wanted to sign us. They kind of dropped us, and then we were fortunate enough to get re-signed, and out of that came Sanctuary, Love Stinks, and Freeze Frame. And so you never really can tell, and I'm fortunate to have a record company that believes in me And so, you take it, you paid your money, takes your chances, but you have to be dedicated to what you do.
Peter Wolf is in the music hall with us. We're talking about rock and roll, and we were talking about the past a little bit. You're playing at the House of Blues tonight. I don't know what your show is like these days. I know you've got this band with you. Do you do any of the old songs?
Well, actually, a lot of the, parts of the Guile songs are part of my, I helped write them or wrote them, and they're part of my life. So I sort of love to do them because, they mean a lot to me too. So I try to make a smorgasbord, shall we say. And I really like to include a lot of different things. So if someone's coming down to the House of Blues, they're going to hear, long line record and some of the solo stuff, but also going to hear some of my favorite Guile stuff because that's part of my life.
I have a couple favorites. Can I twist your arm?
Well,
Now? I don't want to wait for tonight.
Okay.
What do you got?
Well, what would you like to hear? Your request, lady's choice, shall we say?
Magnificent.
Yeah, yeah. Or as the Magnificent would say, "Oh my darling, get a little bit closer right here. Just let Wolf Goof and Mama Toofa told you about the consonants of love."
I'm not sure if it's I Must Have Got Lost or if it's Give It To Me. You got to give one of them to me.
Okay, well, let's do this. This is Wolf Goof, Mama Toofa, Pete Wolf, your little lover boy with the green teeth, and you're listening to FM 101.9, making it sound so fine. I want everybody in the sound of my voice, if you're in the car, to start honking your horn, lower down the window, get on up, baby, and give it to me. Let me hear you. Everybody, woo! All right, don't touch the knobs, baby, because we're going to sing a little something here for you. If you got arthritis, rheumatism, just tell your little darling to shake it up and like this here. Come on, fellas. You got to give it to me. Yeah. You got to give it to me. You got to give it to me. Woo! You got to give it to me. Oh, let me tell you. You're so slick. Ooh, you know every trick now. You know I want it. Oh, I want it so bad. You know I need it. I can't believe it. So come here, Rebuta. Oh yeah. You got to give it to me. Yeah. You got to give it to me. Make it fine. Give it to me. Come on. You got to give it to me. Oh yeah, like this here. You bugger me every night. Say you want it. Oh, you want it right now. You know I need it. Ooh, I can't believe it.
Wolf in the Music Hall. Thank you for giving that to me. You just gave me a great memory.
Well, thank you.
I was just in my parents' Volare cruising around town in the station wagon.
Volare. Well, let me just take these false teeth right back in my mouth.
Peter Wolf, you're wearing sunglasses right now. You're decked in black. I can imagine if I accidentally bumped into you in the grocery store, maybe in Boston, and I didn't know who you were, I'd be like, that guy's a rock and roller. You are
Well.
so rock and roll. You're smoking cigarettes and cigars all over the CD jacket to your new CD, Long Line. But somebody told me that, yeah, and you know what you're doing now? He's showing me his stomach, and I don't know what that is.
That is a nickel patch. You see, I've come out to the. I'm trying to be politically correct.
Show me that again.
I'm trying to be politically correct.
Oh, it looks like a scar. It's
Well, it's got all inflamed. You see, but.
Well, what I was leading up to, though,
Yes.
is look how flat your stomach is. Somebody told me that you're like working out. Which guy are you? The smoking rock and roller or Mr. L.A.?
Well, the way I work out is I do rock and roll. I don't know what they mean by working out, but I believe in the seafood diet. Eat all the food you can see. Eat everything, but just don't chew, but don't swallow. No, I don't really quite work out. I mean, I'm conscious about staying in shape, and I like for tonight. I mean, I won't sort of imbibe until after showtime, but we'll be corking a few and gathering the tribe and sort of blazing into the L.A. night. One hopes.
So you still live in rock and roll, and you sound it too. This is the point where I usually say thank you, Peter Wolf, for coming in and playing with us. But because you've got the DJ background, I wanted to invite you to come into the next room with me, into the studio after we play these commercials, and maybe you could pick out a few songs and do a little bit of your thing.
Well, it would be my pleasure. I really thank you for asking me.
All right, thanks for coming, and Rich, hit those commercials.